critically think, awake, transform, and elevate your mind. Have you ever noticed that the results of virtually all health studies that we receive from white sources favor themselves over black people? Open your eyes. Can't you see just how absurdly unrealistically it actually is to have health results so one-sidedly favoring one racial group over the other actually is? This unrealistic scenario exists because it's actually fraudulent propaganda that's designed to subliminally instill the myth of white racial superiority into the collective subconscious minds of black people. White social scientists determined a long time ago that doing so instills a value system into our subconscious minds that makes us more compliant with white dominance over our lives. This propaganda campaign is so effective that in many cases, it causes black people to even prefer white dominance over our lives. Here's something else I want you to critically examine. Can you not see just how ridiculous it actually is that virtually all information that we receive about Caucasians are consistently positive? This scenario is too perfect to be true. And can you not see just how unrealistic it actually also is that virtually all information that we black people receive about ourselves from white sources are consistently negative? It's in fact cartoonishly unrealistic. Both of these unrealistic scenarios are also the results of fraudulent propaganda campaigns. This propaganda campaign that falsely exalts whites and falsely marginalizes black people is designed to create and sustain false assumptions within the society that aids in maintaining white social dominance over black people. All societies function based upon the narratives that are fed into society. By repeatedly feeding particular narratives into a society, an entire generation can be steered towards an implied objective. It's a true and well-proven social science tactic. It doesn't matter if the narratives are untrue. What only matters is that the narratives are perceived as being true. Most people will respond accordingly to the narrative they accept as being their truth. Because the white society writes all the narratives that are fed into the society, that therefore literally owns the perception of reality itself. This is not an exaggerated statement. It's a true fact because public perceptions of reality are shaped by the narratives that are fed into the society. As a means of maintaining white social dominance over black people, white propagandists, under the direction and guidance of white social scientists, systematically and repetitively feeds false information into the society that falsely exalts whites and falsely marginalizes black people. The public at large then functions based upon those false narratives rather than the true reality. They actually function based on their perceptions created by the false narratives. It's a false perception management system that's designed to create and sustain perceptions within a society that aids in maintaining white social dominance over black people. Perception management is a propaganda technique that involves altering the perceptions of reality of targeted population and the masses to suit the objective of the ruling class. It's a true and well-proven social science tactic. It's also an essential part of modern information warfare. This disclosed perception management system directly influences societal norms and attitudes within the society, which affects promotions, hiring, firing, criminal sentences, and even film casting practices in ways that aids in maintaining white social dominance over black people. The general population doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't even know it doesn't know. Noam Chomsky said that. At this very moment, there's someone watching this video saying that I'm talking bullshit. That person is insisting that it's not possible to shift the minds of the masses away from true reality and instead according to the will of those who control the narrative. Okay? I'm therefore going to provide you proof that it's absolutely true and possible to shift the minds of millions of people away from true reality. In the book, The Iceman Inheritance, author Michael J. Bradley, whom himself is a Caucasian, writes that racism, the threat of nuclear war, environmental pollution, and other social problems are the results of behaviors, values, and psychology of Caucasians. He further states that throughout history, Caucasians have demonstrated an entrenched predisposition for brutal racism that is matched only by their proclivity for deceit, greed, and hunger for power. They alone are the most arrogant and the race most predisposed to racism. All other races have been made their enemies and their victims. Throughout history, the Caucasians have demonstrated an almost total disregard for the human lives of non-whites. Their subjugation, murder, and exploitation of all other races are unparalleled. While labeling all other races as being savages, the Caucasians have in fact been the most brutally savage throughout history. Moreover, throughout history, Caucasians have killed more blacks, raped more blacks, and have stolen more wealth from black people throughout history than the reverse. Yet in spite of this horrific history of the contrary, Caucasians are now more often perceived as being a racial group possessing the highest ethics and the highest moral standing, while the exact opposite is believed by black people. These perceptions that are in fact held by millions are not consistent with reality. This proves that it's possible to steer the minds of millions away from reality. These commonly held perceptions were deliberately achieved by white propagandists who systematically feed false propaganda into society that falsely exalts and exonerates whites and that marginalizes, criminalizes, and denigrates black people. The public at large functions based upon their false perceptions created by the false propaganda rather than the true reality. This is all possible because people function based upon the narratives that are repetitively fed into a society. By repetitively feeding certain narratives into a society, an entire generation can be steered towards an implied objective. This happens even when those narratives are totally false. Through their monopoly over societal narratives, white propagandists have given their racial group a favorable image makeover. And in doing so, they've literally whitewashed the interpretation of reality itself. Therefore, the group that has been the most evil throughout history are now being perceived by millions as being the heroes of history. And their victims have been made to appear as being the villains. Through this nefarious, unethical practice, white propaganda designers have literally whitewashed our perception of reality. According to social scientists, perception is more important than reality for controlling people and for steering society to an applied objective or course, because people function based upon their perceptions rather than reality. Therefore, all that's required for maintaining white social dominance over black people is to merely create the perception of white racial superiority over black people. Perception, the power of perception is immense. You feed false lies into the public, and the public at large will then function based upon those false lies rather than the true reality. This is our reality. The Black People's Matrix is not science fiction. The Black People's Matrix is the false illusory worldview grafted upon us by birth through the white society's monopoly over information that they've imposed upon us, thus causes our collective minds to perceive a false version of reality that we then function based upon. It's what's known as the illusory truth effect. The illusory truth effect is when people are made to believe that false information is true by repeated exposure to the false information, and then it begins functioning based upon the false information. The white society sits upon a throne of white exalting lies that empowers them. I never said that what I teach would be easy for all to comprehend. I only said that it would be the Black liberating truth. They have so many of our minds. They've created a sophisticated system of racism. The old racism, it's like saying the old racism had a GED education and the new racism has a PhD. They've developed a sophisticated type of racism that they use, and they keep our minds dumbed down and distracted so we can't figure out how to overcome it. We have to elevate our minds. And as long as you cling to biblical